Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to GamerTube, and welcome back to our Poppy Playtime character concept series. So the time has finally come to do our community character episode. So the characters that you, the community, came up with are the Claw Machine and the Crayon Crew. So we'll go into their backstory, location, gameplay mechanics, and all that good stuff as well. As always, I will just state that everything I say in these videos isn't necessarily the overall universe and lore of Poppy Playtime. This is just a fun what-if scenario and a cool creepy character that we get to show off, and we hope you enjoy. And last, before we start today's video, do be sure to subscribe to GamerTube, as it helps a lot and it's greatly appreciated. It also keeps you up to date with all the videos that we post. And the live stream we did to make these two characters was so much fun, and I had such a great time making this character with you all. And if you want to see another one of these live streams, then do be sure to leave a like, because if we get enough likes, then we'll do another live stream. So be sure to like and stay tuned. Alrighty, well, let's get into the character concept of the Claw Machine and the Crayon Crew. So previously in our Poppy Playtime character concept series, we've seen a number of strange and creepy looking toy characters. For the most part, each of these toy characters was set on harming the player. But through every encounter with these toy creatures, our main character has come out on top. Each and every time, they desperately try to find a way out of this cursed factory, but they still wander the halls looking for freedom. And there are still many obstacles to overcome before they would be free. So the main protagonist once again has roamed around and found themselves in a new area of the factory. And this specific area was linked with the Playtime Co. tour, more specifically the end of the tour, and this new area is the Playtime Arcade. When the tour was over, the children would enter the arcade and play all the different games and win prizes. Majority of the prizes were exclusive to the Playtime Co. tour. They weren't for sale, they could only be won. And out of all the small prizes that you could win, there was one prize that was very sought after. And this was the Crayon Crew. These were a bunch of individually coloured crayons that the tour guests could win. Each of them was shaped like a little person and they could be used to draw with on any side. Like we said, these crayons weren't for sale, they could only be won in the Playtime Arcade. But how did the children win these colourful crayon people? Well, that's where our next character at the Playtime Arcade comes in. So all of the Crayon Crew could be won from the Claw Machine. Just one specific claw machine, and that was the blue one. Out of all the other claw machines in the arcade, this one was especially different. The way in which it differed from all the other machines was that it was sentient. The blue claw machine could think for itself and actually helped out the children win a prize. So every time someone plays, they would get 2 chances. On the first chance, the player would be in full control. But if they didn't win one of the colourful Crayon Crew pieces, then the claw machine would take over and control its own claw. The machine would ensure that the children would always win one of the crayons. And when they won, there would always be a happy song that would play. So at the end of the day, the claw machine was always fair, and it proved to be one of the most popular machines in the whole arcade. But eventually, less and less people took the tour and in turn stopped visiting the arcade. The claw machine's one and only purpose was to dispense surprises to the tour guests. But now they just sit there in the arcade and gather dust. Same goes for the Crayon Crew. Their only purpose was to be drawn with, but that too has been taken away from them. And like everything at the Playtime Co. factory, those who got neglected and forgotten became cynical and twisted, and eventually became evil. So now we return to our main protagonist, who finds himself standing at the front of the Playtime Arcade. Oh great, that's just what they needed. Who knows what other deranged and creepy toys will be lurking inside. But the arcade was the only way forward, so the player didn't really have a choice. They walked in cautiously and looked around. All they could see were the dusty old arcade machines scattered throughout. It looks like no one has played any of these games in the arcade for some time now. As they looked around at all the old machines, they noticed that one is missing. Huh, maybe someone stole it. It's not like it could get up and walk away all by itself. As they make their way through the arcade, they smell something quite strange. Something they've smelled before. It was the smell of crayons. They distinctly remember the smell from their childhood. But these crayons weren't as pleasant smelling as the ones they remembered. As the player turns the corner, they see something quite strange. Across the arcade, they see what appears to be a claw machine walking around. How could this be? It has legs and everything. It's walking around all by itself. The player was far enough away that they don't think it could see them. As they take another step, they stand on an empty soda can. The player freezes immediately. Hopefully the walking claw machine didn't hear it. But as they turn around and look behind them, there it was. It was just standing there. The claw machine was in pretty bad shape. Its blue colour was all faded, and it was filled with rusted spots. The glass casing was shattered, and the claw inside looked to be quite odd. The original claw was hanging out the back of the machine just like a tail. And those creepy mechanical legs were the reason the claw machine was so fast. But above all, the strangest thing was its mouth that was filled with deadly sharp teeth. After a short while, it became clear to the player that this claw machine couldn't see. They would be able to sneak right past it, but they had to keep quiet. As they sneak through the arcade, they keep an eye on the claw machine just in case. All seemed to be going well. It was until the music started playing. All of a sudden, strange music started playing from the claw machine, and as it did, the strangest thing started to happen. Out of the prize compartment popped out little crayon people. It was them, the Crayon Crew. One by one, each little crayon jumped out. There was blue, orange, yellow, green, red, and pink. As they all leapt out of the machine's mouth, they started to scatter. It was almost like they were searching the area for the intruder. Almost like they were the eyes for the rusty old machine. So in this gameplay segment, the player needs to navigate around the arcade and avoid being seen by the Crayon Crew. If any of the Crayon Crew find the player, they would let out a shriek and alert the claw machine. Before the player would even know it, the claw machine would quickly run up to them and grab them with their creepy claw. The machine would retract its claw and crush the player back into the broken glass compartment. And even if the player didn't fit, the claw machine would make them fit. So the player soon realises that they weren't getting out of here unless they do something about the Crayon Crew and the claw machine. As the player tried to come up with a plan, they noticed something on the wall. It was a thermostat. That's it. They remembered when they were younger that crayons were quite easy to melt, especially when the temperature was really warm. Maybe they could slowly melt the Crayon Crew if they turned up the heat all throughout the arcade. So in this gameplay segment, the player needs to sneak around the arcade and turn up all the heat on all the thermostats. But they still need to be careful not to get spotted, or else the claw machine would deal with them quickly and it would be game over. So one by one the player locates all the thermostats and turns them up as high as they go. Now the heat was really starting to take effect. Not only was the player sweating from the heat, but there was little footprints of melted crayon wax all throughout the arcade. It was starting to work. All the Crayon Crew was starting to soften up and melt. It was now time for the player to sneak up on the Crayon Crew and dispose of them quickly. First up was green. Half of their head has already been worn down, so they couldn't really see very good to begin with. So the player strikes green with their GrabPack and smushes them into a melted green puddle. 1 down, 5 to go. Next up was yellow. Yellow had started melting quite a bit since the heat had been turned up. They already had melted marks before, but now it was even worse. As they sneak up behind yellow, they turn around and spot the player. Just before yellow can let out a screech, the player picks them up and throws them at the wall. Yellow hits the wall and splats all over it. 2 down, 4 to go. As the player continues to sneak around, they find pink and orange. They were both searching for the player together. This could be a good opportunity to smush 2 crayons at the same time, but the player would have to time this perfectly. They would need to use both hands at the same time to smush them both, because if they miss one, then their cover will be blown and the claw machine will get them. So they wait for the perfect time to strike and smush both pink and orange. Now all that's left is red and blue, but where could they be? They soon realise that red is on top of the claw machine. They would be their eyes and spot wherever the player would be. So the player needs to be extra careful with the red crayon. They need to hit red and not hit the claw machine. So the player's aim needs to be perfect. They take aim and give it their best shot. They launch their GrabPack hand and knock red off the claw machine. Red falls to the ground and lands with a splat. Now the only crayon left is blue, but the player couldn't find them anywhere. They had to be somewhere, but blue couldn't be found. After searching around and having no luck, blue finally reveals himself. He was hanging onto the player's back. Blue crawls up the player's body and latches onto their face. Blue starts screeching and alerting the claw machine. The player has to do something quick. Blue was screeching in their face and the GrabPack hands couldn't reach that closely. As Blue was close up to their face, the player noticed a little detail. On Blue's packaging read, non-toxic. So in a fast act of desperation, the player quickly eats Blue. Preschoolers ate crayons all the time, so now wouldn't be any different. As the claw machine goes to attack the player, they spit the chewed up Blue on the floor. Blue lands on the floor with a loud splat. As soon as the last crayon was finished, the claw machine stopped suddenly. The player waited for it to attack, but it never did. It just stood there motionless. It seems that all of its prizes were gone, and it didn't have a function anymore. It was as if the claw machine didn't have a purpose anymore. Like what was a claw machine without its prizes? Nothing. Empty. Just a useless hollow machine with nothing more to give. So the player took this chance to make their exit while they could. Who knows when this creature would change its mind? So as the player makes their exit, they ready themselves for whatever comes next. Hopefully it will only be one enemy and not a whole bunch. But when it comes to Playtime Co-Factory, you just never know what's around the next corner. And as to what that may be, we'll just have to wait and see. Alrighty everyone, well that's all we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing, as it helps a lot and it's greatly appreciated. As always, do be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the Crayon Crew, the claw machine, and what you'd like to see going forward. Alrighty everyone, on to the next video, catch you later, bye.